Such an appearance combined with a low price definitely attracts attention, but it's not just about the looks and the price, because even if this smartwatch cost 2 or 3 times more, it would still defend itself with its features, measurement accuracy, build quality, and battery life. Interested? I am. This is Pavel, and you're watching Techmaniac HD. You've likely heard that cheap wine is praised for being both good and inexpensive. But with cheap electronics, the opposite is often true. Inexpensive products from no-name brands might look okay in pictures, but everything else is usually junk. But not in this case. The Haylou brand may not be very popular yet, but those who know it are aware that their products are really high quality, while still maintaining very attractive prices. Also, this brand is owned by a larger manufacturer that supplies parts to Xiaomi. No matter how you look at it, Haylou was actually funded by money coming from Xiaomi. Haylou offers some smartwatches, but most of their products are Bluetooth headphones. Not so long ago, I reviewed the S35 noise-cancelling model, which maintained an excellent balance between high build and sound quality and a really low price. So since Haylou provides high quality while asking for little money, it would be a mistake to ignore their latest smartwatch. Inside the package, you'll find the Haylou RS5 smartwatch with one of the installed watch faces stuck to the front. We also have a second woven fabric elastic strap here. Naturally, the set also includes a 60 cm magnetic charging cable and all the paperwork. So let's start the setup by selecting Polish as the language. On the smartphone, we install an app called Haylou app, which will ask us to scan a QR code. After a moment, the Bluetooth connection will be established and we can start using the smartwatch. But before exploring its features, let's examine its construction. The case is made of a zinc alloy, which is covered here with paint in a color designated by the manufacturer as gunmetal, which is a dark, deep metallic shade that most normal people would simply call black or metallic black. If you prefer something lighter, the smartwatch is also available in silver with a white silicone band, or braided with an accent in a kind of orange salmon peach color. On the right, at the center, there is a pushable rotating crown. No matter how deep we go into the settings or apps, pressing it brings us back to the home screen. But when we're on the watch face, pressing it opens the app screen. We can also customize the way these apps are displayed. If we don't like these small icons, which we also have to scroll through, we can change them to larger ones. Or even better, to ones with labels. As you can see, we can use the rotating crown to scroll through the app list, the data provided by them, but also to switch between 4 predefined, permanently installed watch faces and the one we upload ourselves to its memory. Beneath the reinforced tempered glass is a screen over 2 inches. Active matrix organic light emitting diode, of course, means infinitely high contrast and deep, perfectly saturated colors. The 60 Hz refresh rate makes animations smooth and natural. The high resolution also positively affects our experience and makes us feel like the device belongs to a higher price segment. Brightness also doesn't disappoint, and at the 4th level it reaches up to 1000 nits, which allows you to read the screen content even on a sunny day. The design undoubtedly refers to the style used by Apple. Of course, a keen eye will catch all the differences, but most people seeing a Haylou RS5 on our wrist might be convinced that we're wearing a smartwatch worth 2000 zlotys, not one for less than 200. Exactly, it may be hard to believe, but Haylou has set the price at a really very affordable level. Although, as you know, prices can change, so I recommend you click the link in the description of this video or in the pinned comment. This way, by watching further, you'll know how the watch's features compare to its current price. As I mentioned at the beginning, it's hard to buy cheap electronics that may look decent at first glance, but upon closer inspection, they're mediocre and don't work quite as they should. It's completely different with this watch, but in the end, everything depends on the price. Now let's move on to the technical details, and don't worry, I'll only cover the most important points here. The heart of the device is the RTL8763B chip, which is more than enough to power this 51-gram beast equipped with 128 megabytes of flash memory. The thickness of the case is about 10.5 millimeters. RS5, of course, has an IP68 certification, which means we can swim with it, but submerging it at greater depths, well, that's out of the question. Pulling down the top bar gives us quick functions. The first one continuously maintains the Bluetooth connection with the smartphone, letting us reject or accept calls, talk through the watch, call back, select a number from the address book, or use the keypad. I have to admit, having this option for quick conversations, like when we're driving and the phone is buried in a pocket, being able to answer and exchange a few words on the smartwatch is very handy. The microphone on the right side works just fine, and the people I talked to had no trouble understanding what I was saying. The left speaker is large for a smartwatch, but otherwise unremarkable, although, if you understand me, that's probably good enough. After all, everything you're hearing right now is being played through this tiny speaker built into the smartwatch. Let's move on. In the settings, we can enable multimedia sound. In this mode, RS5 takes on the role of a wireless speaker, and we can watch movies or play games like this. But does anyone really need that? Well, I kind of doubt it. Unless the speaker in your smartphone is damaged for some reason, then yes, such a feature could definitely come in handy. Getting back to quick settings, here we can change the way available apps are displayed. We can enable or even customize the Do Not Disturb mode. We can mute the sound, adjust the brightness, or activate the feature that lights up the screen when you raise your wrist. On the next page, the magnifying glass icon will help us find the phone. The flashlight app brings up a white screen. I started using the battery saver mode on the very first night. It turns off vibrations, notifications, wake up by movement, and lowers the brightness, but I mainly use it because it's the fastest way to turn off the always-on screen display, which shows the time all day long. Sure, I realize that everyone has their own opinion, but in my view, wearing something on your wrist that doesn't show the time all the time whenever you look at it makes no sense at all. That's why when I was using the RS5, I always had the always-on screen display active, and the battery still lasted me twice as long as the expected operating time. But we'll talk about the battery later. At the end, you'll find all the remaining settings. By swiping up from the bottom edge, you open the list of recent notifications from your smartphone. Only 8 will fit here. On the plus side, the smartwatch has no problem handling diacritical characters or classic American standard code for information interchange emoticons. However, graphic emojis are not displayed correctly by the device, but that's actually normal. Message length is limited and you can't scroll through them. Swiping from right to left will take us to the activity section. The current metrics are on the first card. Swiping from right to left a second time will take you to the summary of your last sleep. One more swipe and we reach the chart showing the average hourly heart rate for the whole day. Just scroll down to see the average from the last 7 days, for example. One more swipe from the right and we get to the data, this time about blood oxygen saturation. Here, the weekly summary is missing. Another swipe takes us to mood. And the next one is a chart showing our daily stress level. After that, we'll only find the weather and the option to add more components. All the ones I mentioned were here by default, but as you can see, we can still add phone, workout, music or breathing rate here. However, I believe there's no need for that because when you're on the main screen, you just need to swipe from left to right to display the quick app menu. There you'll find the 4 most recently opened apps, and in my opinion, that's the fastest way to access them. Just like here, I tap the running figure and it takes me to the workout app. Inside, along with the icons, you'll find the most popular activities, but at the bottom, when you tap on Other Sports, a huge group opens up, nearly 150 different activities and sports. There are really tons of them. Dodgeball, billiards, darts, push-ups, or walking the dog. Even trampoline or skydiving, which actually has the icon for regular diving, but those are just small details that are easy to fix with an update. For us, it's most important that this activity is recorded in the watch's log. The app on the smartphone, on the other hand, will display a lot more data from the activity and will be able to analyze the heart rate for the entire duration of the workout. After an hour of 3-on-3 basketball, we have the following data. Sometimes the heart rate spikes, but you have to do it if the situation demands. And I won't hide the fact that during this time I wasn't fully recovered after my illness. In the case of outdoor activities like running, to ensure more accurate measurement, the app activates the global positioning system on your phone. Based on this, we get more accurate readings. When you swipe from the right during a workout, you'll go to music management. Just a little fun fact. I just have to mention here that adjusting the volume with your finger feels a bit clunky. Tapping the top or bottom part of the speaker gives much better results. I used Haylou RS5 with the first version of the software, so again, an update might easily fix this. By pressing the crown, we display all the remaining apps. We have a stopwatch, timer, alarm, calculator, and remote camera control, which basically just comes down to taking photos remotely. There's also an app for breathing exercises. With the smartphone app, we can manage notifications, change, enable, and edit quick replies for incoming calls. We can also activate a reminder here to move around a bit after sitting for too long. Sleep monitoring is also here, and it works quite well. Tracking normal nights is not really a problem for most devices, but difficulties arise when our sleep isn't exactly as it should be. Here's an example from February 1. Overall, the gloomy face matches mine after that night. 10 awakenings, but that's because I had a cold, and even though I went to bed early, I fell asleep much later, which, as you can see, the watch also recorded. 5 nights later, things looked much better. While I was very sick for a few days, the watch didn't log my sleep. But the truth is, I was tossing and turning all night and barely dozing, so what was there to record anyway? In my opinion, it's better to have no entry in that log than something completely made up. From the watch, you can choose between 2 always-on-screen display themes, digital and analog. However, other watch faces can only be changed through the smartphone app. There are 144 of them, so there's really a lot to choose from, and everyone should find something suitable for themselves. From artistic and classic to minimalist, digital, and sporty styles. Personally, I prefer the ones that display more data. We can also create our own watch face, but I tested the watch before the official release, when there was only one style to choose from, and even then, after adding a photo from my own gallery, it didn't actually get added. So we're waiting for a solution. From the app, we can also activate 24-hour monitoring of heart rate, blood pressure, and blood oxygen saturation. However, in this translation, it's not about arterial blood pressure, but about stress, meaning we feel pressure in a figurative sense. Let's say we're irritated by something. Activating these functions leads to faster battery drain. However, I'm convinced that we buy this type of device precisely so that we can monitor our health throughout the entire day and night. But don't worry, I have these functions enabled all the time, and the battery life still exceeds what the manufacturer claims. So let's finally talk about the battery. According to the manufacturer, with fairly regular use, the 300 mAh battery should last between 9 and 15 days. In always on display mode, which means you can always see the current time, it's 3 days. I use always on display and monitor my blood pressure, heart rate, and oxygen saturation 24/7. It's also a fact that for those few night hours I turn on battery saver mode, but that's mainly so the screen doesn't wake me up. Although I expected that with such usage I wouldn't even reach 3 days, it turns out that 6 days is definitely possible. Yes, with always on display turned on during the day and 24-hour measurements, I also used the smartwatch, changed the watch face, and browsed workouts. You know how it is with a new gadget. But I usually handle all communication from behind my computer keyboard, so I have notifications turned off anyway. Always. On everything, well, except for incoming calls and text messages, because otherwise it would just be too much. But if you want to get every notification on your watch about who posted what on Facebook, what they're having for lunch, and whether they liked it, then dozens or even hundreds of such notifications will definitely shorten that time. I filmed the whole charging process. At 9:50 the battery is at 0% and by 9:52 it's at 2%. In 21 minutes from the start of the test, the watch shows 22%. After 45 minutes, we see 47%, so we can confidently say that the smartwatch charges at a speed just over 1% per minute, at least up to 60%, because from that point on, as usual, the increase slows down. After 92 minutes, we have 85%, and it only reaches 100 after 2 hours and 15 minutes. More technically advanced people know that to extend battery life and limit its capacity loss, we shouldn't charge it to 100%. Not to mention leaving such a device on the charger for a longer time. Research shows charging to 70% increases lifespan tenfold, while charging to 60% nearly 15-fold. That's why, if you want the batteries in your gadgets to maintain very high efficiency for many years, just try to remember this rule. Therefore, since you use up 12 to 15% per day, and a little more on training days, I would recommend charging your watch while you're taking a shower. Those 15 minutes are enough to recharge the battery for another day. There are many features that I like about this device. A bright, beautifully saturated high-resolution screen and a satisfying selection of really nice, well-designed watch faces are also a plus here. I was pleasantly surprised by the accuracy of the measurements and the battery. The design isn't bad either. On the downside, one thing I could mention is the fact that I don't see a way to turn off the screen here. In some smartwatches, covering the screen with your hand turns it off. Here, well, nothing happens. I prefer setting the screen timeout to a longer period, like 15 seconds, but I also make sure to manually turn off the screen when I'm done using it. Those 15 seconds are perfectly fine if we're looking at sleep data, heart rate, or reading notifications, but sometimes it's definitely too long if we literally need the screen for just, well, 2 seconds. For example, if I just want to quickly check how many steps I've taken today or check the battery status, I'd like to have a way to turn it off, but, well, I don't see that option available. Although, funnily enough, I discovered that double-clicking the crown changes the app display on the screen. That's an interesting tidbit. Another thing I want to mention here is the ambient light sensor. Admittedly, its absence is fully justified, at least for such a low-price segment, but at the same time, it doesn't change the fact that such a sensor is very useful, especially when the smartwatch has such an excellent, bright display. Despite these two issues, the lack of manual screen turn-off and automatic brightness adjustment, I think that at this price it's actually a pretty smart device. Of course, you'll find plenty of cheaper options that will also show you the current time and provide some rather questionable readings based on not so great sensors. Haylou RS5 isn't the cheapest, but it has better build quality and measurement accuracy than most smartwatches in its price range. Prices can change, so as always you'll find a link to the current price in the description and in the pinned comment.